Hi friends, it's Deanna Williston with Our Blooming Catholic Life, and I'm here with my Lenten program. It's a series of book reviews right now, but there'll be more videos later. I just want to review the books so that you can go ahead and get them if you want. You can see I'm wearing a little hand-knit sweater to kind of get you in the mood for our cozy quest this Lent. And if you're like, hey, Lent's supposed to hurt, penance, sorrow, suffering, and yes and no. If you really enter into the suffering of the Lord, it can be a beautiful thing. We have a whole playlist on here on the encyclical, and let's see if I could say it right, Salvifici Dolores, where we enter into the suffering of the Lord, right? We make up what is lacking in the suffering of the Lord, which is his body. That's us, his body. We still have to suffer. But when we're suffering with Christ, his yoke is easy, his burden is light. So join me for a cozy Lent. Why not look at these books? So the first one is Bilbo's Journey, Discovering the Hidden Meaning of the Hobbit by Joseph Pearce. This is published by St. Benedict Press. It is copyright in 2012. Let's jump in here. You can see the chapters are listed with page numbers. It doesn't have the ... but you can kind of use the line behind to see it. But again, this book is meant to be read sequentially from front to back. There are notes. Let's jump back to the notes and the about the author. Oh, if you don't know the author at all, let's start there because he's the author of 2 of our books. The author of more than 15 books, Joseph Pearce, is the foremost Catholic biographer of the past 2 decades. He has chronicled the life and works of, among others, J.R.R. Tolkien, C.S. Lewis, and William Shakespeare. He is also the co-editor of the Austin Review, executive director of Catholic Courses, and host of the EWTN program, The Quest for Shakespeare. He is the writer-in-residence and visiting fellow at Thomas More College of Liberal Arts in Merrimack, New Hampshire. He's also the visiting scholar at Mount Royal Academy in Sunapee, New Hampshire. Oh, the notes. The notes are end notes. Nope, I thought he was going to help us go into it a little bit more. He does not. So let's begin in the beginning, knowing that there are endnotes. So chapter 1, Bilbo's Pilgrimage. J.R.R. Tolkien's first work of fiction, The Hobbit, is so often overlooked in favor of its epic follow-up, The Lord of the Rings. And not without reason. The Lord of the Rings carries a depth of meaning and an overall quality that outstrips its predecessor. It is also a publishing phenomenon. Since its initial publication almost 60 years ago, more than 150 million copies of The Lord of the Rings have been sold. Furthermore, Tolkien's epic has triumphed over all its literary rivals in numerous opinion polls. A survey organized jointly by a major bookselling chain and a national TV network in the UK in 1996 revealed that The Lord of the Rings topped the poll in 104 of the 105 branches of the store, receiving 20% more votes than its nearest rival, 1984. It triumphed in a similar fashion in other surveys conducted by the BBC, by national newspapers, and literary societies. Perhaps its ultimate triumph in the age of the internet was being voted best book of the millennium by Amazon.com customers, signaling its conquest of the final frontier of cyberspace. And that's one of the reasons why this selection for Lent is lovely. The public is aware of these books. They've watched the movies. This could be a great way, both for reflection and growth in ourselves, but to help those in our parish, the wider parish that don't come to the Mass, that don't come into church. It's a way to engage other people. So lovely. It says not, then it talks about the movies and whether it's a children's book or movie. Let's see. Here to jump ahead a little bit. Of course, this is the chapter itself. Aha! Let's start on page 4. In short, we are meant to see ourselves reflected in the character of Bilbo Baggins and our lives reflected in his journey from the Shire to the Lonely Mountain. How is this? Clearly, we are not hobbits, literally speaking, nor could we ever journey with dwarves through the misty mountains in Mirkwood, encountering goblins and elves en route, except for vicariously by allowing our imagination as readers to follow in Bilbo's footsteps. In order to see the story as Tolkien wishes us to see it, we have to transcend the literal meaning of the story and ascend to the level of moral and anagogical applicability. For the Christian who spurs the nihilism of the existentialist, life is charged with meaning and purpose and is at the service of the final goal and purpose of every human life, which is being united with the divine life of God in heaven. It's a relationship with God. That's our goal. This being so, every life should be a quest to achieve the goal of heaven through growth in virtue, thereby attaining the power through grace to overcome the monsters and demon which seeks to prevent the achievement of this paramount goal. Friends, we, especially those, I won't just say in America, because there's political upheaval around the world right now. It's crazy out there. And there's so much crazy, how do we say craziness? There's so much fear, and the fear-mongering online is insane. Even Duolingo has killed off its mascot, saying it was hit by a truck. Like, that's how bizarre our world has gotten. So where do we turn? How do we work through this valley of darkness that we're currently in? And here is some help. It is in this way and with this understanding of meaning, the purpose of life, that we are meant to read The Hobbit. And it is in this way alone, that we will find its deepest and most applicable meaning. Another key component of The Hobbit, which shares this with The Lord of the Rings, is the presence of an invisible hand of providence or grace. The invisible hand, euphemistically labeled luck in the story, has led to a degree of misunderstanding on the part of many critics. Colin Manlove is typical of those who seek the presence of such luck as a literary weakness, describing it as the continued presence of a biased fortune. Manlove explains that a whole skein of apparent coincidences signifies that it is not moral will, but luck, which is the architect of success. In the presence of such biased fortune or luck, Manlove argues that the struggle with evil in Tolkien's work is merely posturing in a rigged boat. Such criticism lacks the subtlety because it fails to see the subtlety at work in the narrative. As Gandalf makes plain at the book's conclusion, what had been called luck was not really luck at all. You don't really suppose, do you, Gandalf tells Bilbo, that all your adventures and escapes were managed by mere luck? And so the book is going to look at our quests at grace, at things such as dragon sickness, the greed, right? It's going to look at secularism. It's going to look at the ego. It's going to look at making ourselves into our own gods. That's what this book is going to do. It's going to be a very exciting journey. I'll tell you, the book, the chapter titles in the book give nothing away, like Gollum in the Ring. It's very literal for the book. It's not telling us where that deeper level is going to go. One interesting thing to note is that the page numbers are in the upper corner, right, of the introduction. But after the introduction, or after the first chapter, no, I apologize. I see now. The page numbers are in the upper outside corner of every regular page. But when it's going to be a chapter start, it's going to be at the bottom center. There are generous margins in this book. Generous margins, and what does that mean? You can take lessons. Look at all the notes that you could be taking. There's so much blank space in this book. It doesn't have artwork within that you might imagine it has, but you probably have a good imagination of what's going on if you've seen the cartoon, the movie, even if you've read the books. You have those images in your head already. Wait, here's an interesting one. Blessed are the poor in spirit, chapter 12. And that's right after Bilbo, the peacemaker. A very enchanting, enticing little titles there. Well, here on page 107, I'll read you just a snippet more, and we'll go ahead and end this book review. Much of the Christian morality of The Hobbit is conveyed in this final conciliatory exchange between Bilbo Baggins of the Shire and Thorin Oakenshield, the king under the mountain. The adventure has been bitter, insofar as it ends in death, and no amount of material wealth can compensate for the loss of life. And yet Bilbo would rather have shared in the deadly perils of his friend, even in an adventure that ends so bitterly, than have stayed at home in the comfort of the Shire. In this embrace of suffering, even unto death, Bilbo is encapsulating the whole idea of life being a cross that we are called to carry willingly and indeed enthusiastically. And friends, I will leave it there. Join me on this journey, Bilbo's journey, but it's our journey into relationship with the Trinity this Lent. May God bless you, friends. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti.